Thistlethorn's Mushroom House, Part 4, The Staircase. Today we will be working on building the staircase that leads up to the second floor of Mrs. Thistlethorn's mushroom house, the staircase base. I began by using Ara from Bentley House Money's method of using sticky notes to make a pattern for the base of the staircase. I also drew the first few stairs on it to get an idea of how they were going to look and when they should start curving. Next, I used my pattern to trace out the staircase base onto a thin piece of cardboard. Using an X-Acto knife with a fresh blade, I carefully cut out the cardboard base. Once it was cut out, I dry fitted it in the mushroom house to make sure that everything fit perfectly. The kick plate. To create the kick plate at the bottom of the staircase, I used a wooden stir stick, which I measured and then cut with my miter shears. Once cut, I sanded the edges. I added a bead of tacky glue to the front edge of the staircase base and glued the kick plate to it. The first step. For the first step, I measured and marked off the width on a jumbo popsicle stick and cut it with an X-Acto knife. Then I sanded the cut edge. Next, I cut the rounded end from one side of the popsicle stick with my miter shears and X-Acto knife, trimming off the rough parts from where I snapped off the rounded part and then sanded it. Once sanded, I measured and marked the length of the step. I once again made use of my miter shears to make my cut and then sanded the cut end. Then it was time to check and make sure that the step fit the kick plate already glued to the base. I glued a piece of square toothpick over here to help this riser stay square and give it a little extra support. First step is done. I put a couple of popsicle sticks underneath there to hold it up. Now on to the next ones. The next two steps were made in a similar fashion, but with higher rises than the kick plate and with square toothpicks as supports for the rises. Okay, I'm 2 steps in and now things are going to start getting tricky because we're working towards the curve. A view from the side. The next several steps were unique in their measurements as they curved upward, with the inside measurements getting smaller and the outside measurements increasing. The height of the rises remained the same. I used my 1-2-3 blocks to stabilize the stairs as the glue dried. Mrs. Thistlethorn stopped by to check on the progress of the staircase and even tried it out. Making the cupboard front. For the cupboard front, I determined how tall and wide I wanted it to be, then I cut some mat board using those measurements. Then I traced the stairs that the cupboard front would cover. After squaring up the angles, I cut out the shape I had drawn for the cupboard front. Then I checked the fit. I decided where I wanted the door to go and its dimensions and drew it on the mat board and cut it out. I cut a piece of mat board for the side wall of the cupboard and glued it into place. The side wall is now glued and clamped and taped to the stair up here and down at the floor at the bottom. So next time I make a staircase, I will do things a little differently. I will put on this side wall and even out the floor first, and then I will work on the front. I did the exact opposite. So I ended up having to recut these stairs. This is the original, these are the new ones. And I've also decided to put the hinges on the left instead of the right so that you can see what's inside the closet or cupboard under the stairs when she opens it up. Because if it opens to the right, you won't be able to see it. So I decided I'm going to go ahead and glue it, and I'm using tacky glue, and I'm going to put a 1, 2, 3 block on top. Some added weight so that everything sticks nice, and it should be all stuck together by tomorrow. The next day, the glue had dried and I was ready for the next step, the cupboard door. The first thing I did for the cupboard door was to make a door frame by cutting strips of cardstock to size, mitering the ends at a 45-degree angle and gluing them into place around the hole for the door. I cut out 2 pieces of cardstock to embellish the outside of the door and glued them into place. Hinges. Next, it was time to tackle the hinges. My first attempt was with a cloth hinge, which didn't work out because the space I had to work in was so tight. Next, I tried a pin hinge, and that didn't work because I couldn't get the door installed with the pins in place. On to plan C. For my third try, I used the paper and toothpick method and finally had a winner. I wrapped a small strip of paper around the center of the toothpick and glued the ends together. I repeated the process twice more for either end. The center hinge was glued to the back of the door, and the outside hinges were glued to the wall on the inside of the cupboard. I embellished the door just a little more with some maple leaves that I cut out with a mini paper punch using some cardstock. Okay, the cupboard under the stairs is done. It is not perfect, but it'll work in this little mushroom house for Mrs. Thistlethorn. And then I used a paper punch, the mini paper punch, and punched a bunch of leaves and decorated the door so it looks cute and whimsical. And there's also a shelf in there. Now the door does not open very wide, and that's okay. I don't know if I'll put anything in there, maybe just some fabric or bits and pieces and stuff, but we'll see. Next, I guess I will do some painting. The open cupboard door. I painted everything except the stair steps with wicker white acrylic paint and left it to dry. While the paint was drying, I worked on making a cute doorknob for the cupboard using a jewelry headpin and a daisy spacer bead. Because the headpin was a copper color, I painted the head black with a bit of acrylic paint. When the black paint was dry, I added a bit of metallic silver acrylic paint to it and called it done. I made a hole in the door using an awl and glued the doorknob into place. Mrs. Thistlethorn seems pleased. I aged the door just slightly. The steps, I didn't want it to be so white. I'm not sure if I'm going to do anything else, or like maybe paint the leaves a different color or something. I don't know. We'll see. And the steps have now been stained and have a coat of matte Mod Podge on them, and I need to do a railing on it eventually, so this is where we're at. I'm pretty happy with it. I painted the steps of the stairs with asphaltium brown acrylic paint and sealed them with matte Mod Podge. Okay, so I decided to add some color to the store. I used some Maple Green acrylic paint and painted the leaves, and then I used a couple different colors of colored pencils in green to just kind of color in the frame around it and add some depth details to the leaves. I think I'm going to have to go over it and age it a little bit more with my gray pastel. Finishing. So to cover the back, I measured 2 pieces of matte board and glued them onto the back to cover it, cover all this stuff on the inside. And use tacky glue. I used a mixture of tacky glue, white acrylic paint, and drywall compound to fill in the cracks wherever there are joins. I'll let that dry, then I'll sand it down and paint, and then I can call these stairs done and ready to install. A quick peek at the shelf on the inside of the cupboard. All done! Next time on Cat's Meow Minis, we will be working on this lovely stained glass window and the other round window on the ground floor of the mushroom house. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.